Hi, welcome. This is Marty Murphy. Have you ever wondered why it feels so hard to change sometimes? Are there certain areas of your life where it's like, man, I'm a rock star in this area, but in this area, I can't seem to get change going, moving forward at all? I know I've felt that way. And what I've come to discover in the work that I do now is it really is all about the science of the brain. And in the most simplistic terms, when you have a pattern of thinking that gets installed early in life, and you keep thinking this thought over and over and over again, virtually what happens is you are embedding this into your brain even more in the form of a neural pathway. And the more you think a thought, the deeper that neural pathway gets. So when you find yourself at this place where you're like, I really want to make this change, and you hit this wall, you're virtually hitting an inner set point that you have. It's bumping up against a limiting belief, and that's your set point. So when you're bumping up against that, if you're not doing something to help shift that neural pathway to at least interrupt it, that's why you'll feel like you're falling backwards. So you get to this certain spot and you might even get a little farther than you did the last time, but you'll always end up going back if you don't do something to shift this. That's why tapping is so effective for this, because when you're stating the problem that you're having and you're tapping on the meridian points, you're virtually interrupting and thus changing that neural pathway. And in simplest terms, that neural pathway, that canyon in your brain, actually starts to fill in. And then another amazing byproduct of that is a new neural pathway can begin to develop. And it's infinitely more positive. And I've noticed this in my own life, and I've had many clients tell me that too. It's like you have this pattern, and despite your best efforts, you keep trying to change, but then you hit this set point. So once you start tapping, you're interrupting that set point so that you find, oh, I can take this a little further than I did last time, and even a little further. And you start to notice that when that neural pathway kicks back in with that limiting belief, now you have a tool that you can actually use. So when you're hitting this new set point, you can interrupt that and open it up so that you can create another new set point. And then you'll notice that your thoughts become infinitely more positive, and you start to get that traction forward where before it eluded you. And I've said this for myself. There was a time where I was like, I think it was about a year after I started tapping, I was like virtually pinching myself. Like, am I really truly getting this change in my life now? I spent decades trying to get it, and yet I couldn't. So it has nothing to do with willpower. It has nothing to do with your ability to move yourself forward no matter what. It has to do with when you can change those neural pathways in your brain, you actually change your life. So if you haven't tried tapping, I highly recommend you do. And if you're trying it and yet you're still not quite getting the traction in place that you want, it just means you're probably not hitting the exact target that you need to. You're probably not getting in touch with the emotion that's there. And the simplest way to start is start where you're at. And when you often hear in tapping to get as specific as possible, what I have found is start general if you need to, because it's automatically going to chunk down to get more specific on you, because your mind's going to feed you the information. And that's the beauty of it. It's like you don't have to figure it out and think it out. As you tap and you start to interrupt the patterns of thinking that you've had, all of a sudden it's like, I've said this before too, it's like popcorn kernels start popping off in your head, and you start having memories or thoughts or experiences that come up, and that's your roadmap on what to tap on. And I've said this before too, it's always helpful to have someone, especially in the beginning, that can guide you through. I tap with somebody. And I love it because they have a different perspective than I do. And their perspective gets me further so many times, even than I get on my own. And I do get a lot of traction on my own. But when I have those particularly sticky things or the thing that seems to hang around for longer than I really want it to, it really is helpful to get another perspective. So start where you're at. And the best way to start is, how do you feel about this thing in your life right now that you're working on and yet you can't seem to get traction? What's the emotion that's coming up for you about not getting the traction in place? And start there and just tap and see what unfolds for you. And if you ever find yourself going, oh, I just lack willpower, or there's something wrong with me, or I don't have what it takes, tap on that as well, because you'll find that you'll get a lot of movement with that. So let's just do a quick general tapping round. So start in the karate chop. Even though I don't have a clue why I can't seem to get this change I want. But I do know this. I feel very frustrated with myself and a bit hopeless. I choose to acknowledge I feel this way. Even though I can't seem to get the traction I want, and it's not for lack of trying, but I tell myself either there's something wrong with me or I just plain lack willpower. But is that true? I choose to accept that I feel this way. Even though I can't get the traction I want. And I'm just going to honor this part of me. And instead of judging it, just try and notice it. I accept myself no matter what. I do feel stuck. And it's not for lack of trying. I've tried everything that I can think of. But I always seem to hit this wall. And what if this wall I'm hitting is just my internal set point? And what if that's what I need to change? And the way I change my internal set point is to acknowledge how I truly feel about not feeling capable of changing. I can start there. And that's a beginning. And I can learn to accept myself more so that I can begin to release the harsh self-judgment I have. And at least I can start there. And I can choose to start it even right now. And then just take a breath and notice anything that comes up around that. And again, just start where you're at. And what's the feeling that you have about the situation you're in? And that's the perfect place to start. And then just allow whatever to unfold. If the Energizer Bunny runs through your head while you're tapping, there's something significant about every thought that comes up. And just follow that along and follow the process and see what happens for you. Hope you found this helpful. Bye for now, and I'll see you next time.